What's going on, guys? So I have a very interesting topic to talk to you all about, and this is in relation to a picture that's been circulating all over truck and RV forums where it shows a late model Ram 3500 dually pickup truck towing a truck camper in the back, and the truck apparently has split in half or the frame has cracked. We're going to talk about that video, and we're going to use my truck as kind of an example of why something like that could occur, and it can even occur to a truck just like this. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so we have the 2023 GMC Denali with the 3-liter diesel engine sitting right here. As it sits, this truck has about 1,450 pounds worth of cargo capacity. And you would never do to this truck what a lot of people do to heavy-duty trucks like my F450, because there's this presumption that a Ram 3500 dually, a GM 3500 HD, whether it's a GMC or a Chevy, or a Ford F350, F450 dually pickup truck, is like this invincible platform that you can do anything to. So let's talk about that a little bit. So if you are a Ram lover, then you're likely going to point to the fact that there was this white, I believe it was an F450, previous body style, probably like a 2015 or 2016 truck, dually, that had a big camper on the back that also had a frame failure right around this point right here between the cab and the bed of the truck. And now that there's a new generation Ram that has a similar failure, again, that picture circulated everywhere and everyone's trying to comment on what they think the problem is. Well, if you've watched my channel for a while, you probably know exactly what the problem is based on several of the interviews that the owner of that vehicle talked about. He said that his truck had 7,800 pounds worth of cargo capacity. And again, you watch this channel, you realize that's not true. A dually configuration truck like this, or like a Ram 3500, in a crew cab configuration, 4-wheel drive with a diesel, is typically going to have anywhere between about 4,500 to about 5,800 pounds worth of maximum cargo capacity. In order to get the maximum cargo capacity out of a truck like this, or really any truck, it requires the truck to be a very low trim package, generally a work truck package, in a standard cab configuration. So basically take out the extended cab right there, long bed, 2-wheel drive, generally with a gas engine, because the diesel engine actually takes away from the cargo capacity. But what a lot of people also don't realize is when you're looking at the cargo capacity of a vehicle and knowing that that also includes people and the supplies in the truck, part of that capacity is actually front axle weight capacity, which means when you sit in the truck, not all of that weight is being applied to the rear axle of your vehicle. A percentage of that is going to transfer to the front axle. So you can't presume that all of your cargo capacity is designed for cargo in the bed. Because again, once you load up the bed, you actually could be removing weight from the front. And that's not how vehicles are designed. They're designed to distribute weight with, yes, more weight capacity available in the bed, but not all of the weight capacity available in the bed. So let's talk specifically about the Ram in question. 3500 HD truck. I'm going to surmise that based on the configuration I can see in the picture, it's probably going to have between about 5,300 and 5,700 pounds worth of maximum capacity. Probably closer to 5,300 because it does appear to be a 4-wheel drive truck with the Cummins diesel engine. The owner of the truck believed that his truck had like 7,800 pounds worth of cargo capacity. And I don't know if that was because a dealership told him that, because he went to a website and saw the maximum capacity of a HD Ram truck is 7,800 pounds. I don't know where he got that information from, but it's certainly not accurate for his specific truck. Now, that said, a lot of folks could make the case that trucks can be overloaded. They're designed to be overloaded. They're designed to be able to carry more weight than what the sticker on the door says. And there may be some truth to that, but let's talk about why a truck like his would have failed under those circumstances. And of all the different outlets that have talked about this, I'm going to give you a different perspective on this. So if you look at the back axle of my truck right here, and let's call that the pivot point. Why are we calling that the pivot point? Because if you have weight distributed in the bed of my truck, that essentially is going to act as a pivot point for that weight. It's going to be the fulcrum. It's going to be the center point of that weight, and that's where you want to balance your load. So yes, that's a good spot to have weight traditionally. But when you have an excessive amount of weight, like a camper that has a dry weight between 4,500 and 5,000 pounds, and you're centering it right there, and you have this huge lever arm on the back in the form of a bicycle or a motorcycle or an e-bike, Even if you take that out of the equation, when you are driving and you're stopping and going over bumps, going over different types of terrain, that camper resting over the back is going to want to do this number. It's going to want to move. And when you have a fully boxed, very, very rigid frame that doesn't really allow for a lot of flex or play, it's still flexing. It's still deforming. It's still changing slightly back and forth in this position. Because again, this is your pivot point now because it's a round axle, right? And it's pivoting like this. The front's not really going to move, so you can press down on it, but where is most of that weight now being applied? It's being directed towards this center area right here. And what's happening in this area right here? You're getting metal deflection. The metal is moving like this. It's bending up, bending down, bending up, bending down, as that RV is rotating over this pivot point. And eventually, what ends up happening is the metal right here becomes weak, especially if it's rigid, high-strength steel, and that's where you can get section failures. So whenever you take a large camper and you throw it in the bed of your vehicle, and that camper comes close to meeting or exceeding the capacity of the vehicle, you may not actually have an issue so much with the weight of the camper over the back axle. The suspension in the back and your axle isn't necessarily going to be the failure point. The failure point is going to be the area that is deviating or deflecting more than it's designed to, especially over an extended period of time. So if I were Ram and I were their engineers trying to figure out what happened to that truck, I could easily point to the fact that you have a very tall profile, extremely heavy object in the back that is using the rear axle as a pivot point. And then you added additional weight in the back also. And over time, just that movement back and forth like this when you're stopping. And then this section of the truck is essentially moving in and out, in and out. What's happening? The boxed section of that frame, even a C-channel frame can do it eventually, but the boxed section of that frame is stretching. It's expanding, contracting, bending up, bending down, and it does it so much over such a long period of time that it eventually breaks. It finds a weak point, or it creates a weak point through metal fatigue, and it essentially fails. And another industry that you can actually reference to is the aerospace industry, where many airplanes have crashed, many airplanes have failed catastrophically, many fuselages have torn apart because of these very small, subtle movements from expansion and contraction of alloys over an extended period of time. And again, if he had been hauling this truck camper around for an extended period of time over different types of terrains, over different temperatures, over different road conditions, that movement is eventually going to transfer to the weakest part of the structure. And that section right here, which is constantly expanding, contracting, flexing, and deforming, it's eventually going to fail. And that's essentially what happened, in my opinion. It appears to be a section of the frame that buckled due to metal fatigue. And it could have buckled just because it was overloaded. But I don't necessarily think that it was overloaded just from the start, because I believe that's something that probably would have happened a lot earlier if it was just from sheer weight. What I believe happened was that structure rocking over the back axle caused this section of the frame to expand and contract, to deflect and deform, and eventually causing a weakness in the structure itself, and then eventually the frame itself buckled and failed. And yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have different opinions on what happened. Do I think that it is a Ram issue? No. If you did that to this truck over that period of time, I would probably have a frame failure as well. If you did it to a General Motors vehicle. This is one of those reasons that when you look at chassis cab vehicles, granted, even though they have open C channels typically from this section back, the open C channel is usually at least 1/4 inch thick, which makes it twice as thick from a frame material perspective as a boxed frame, not as rigid, but that's also sometimes a perk because it allows for some flex, but they put significant reinforcement on the frames. Whether you're looking at a Class 8 semi-tractor, whether you're looking at Class 6, 7, or even Class 4 and 5 chassis cab vehicles, you will typically see some reinforcement on the frame section right here to prevent that type of deflection and deviation and to reinforce that section. And as sorry as I feel for the owner of that truck, because from what I read, his warranty is not going to cover it, and I really wouldn't expect his warranty to cover damage like that. But as sorry as I feel, I think it's a learning opportunity for a lot of folks who believe, first of all, the hype when it comes to marketing and the numbers related to the highest capacity versions of trucks. And they think that's the truck they own. I did this at a dealership a while back. I went to a Ram dealership and I actually quizzed them on it. What do you think the maximum payload capacity of a certain dually was? And they told me about 7,000 pounds. And it was like 4,800 pounds. So again, you have to understand specifically what your truck is rated for. Also understand that that rating isn't solely for cargo in the bed. It's meant for, yes, the majority of it being cargo capacity in the bed, but still a pretty high percentage of it being the people inside of the vehicle and the weight that will transfer to the front axle as well. And then also understanding what that type of weight can do from a leverage perspective, how that weight is actually going to transfer to different sections of the truck. Same thing happens with an RV. Sidewalls, other components can fail because people load up their RVs in really awkward ways or put things on the bike rack on the back, not realizing that it can cause the frame to deflect and bend in different ways that they didn't think about. So I guess a really simple message to kind of take away from all of this is if you have a dually crew cab pickup truck and it's four-wheel drive with a diesel engine, it's very unlikely you're going to have over 5,500 to 6,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity. There are some configurations that will have that, but most of them won't. And if your truck is equipped with a diesel, because of the increased weight of the diesel engine itself, it's going to take about 500 to 600 pounds off of that capacity. So let's say your truck in a gas configuration has 6,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity. The minute you add a diesel, it's probably going to drop down to like 5,300 pounds. The higher spec truck you have, the number drops down even a little bit more because those luxury amenities count against the cargo capacity of your vehicle. And the frame is something a lot of people generally don't think about. So understanding where a frame is flexing. The only failure point on a truck isn't going to be the suspension. It can be the frame. It can be the section that has to handle constant deflection, constant expansion and contraction because your back axle is acting as that pivot point and it's deflecting and it's moving that energy to other parts of the vehicle. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was educational. I hope it helped you understand a little bit more about what probably happened to that truck and why you always need to be careful, and you always need to understand what your specific truck is rated for, but not just that, where you're putting the weight and what that weight can be doing to other components on the vehicle. Guys, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.